The Scouting Association of the Polish Republic was founded on the 12th of February in 1989. At present, the Scouting Association has over 15,000 members. It is an associate member of the Confederation of European Scouts. The Scouting Association is a public benefit organization that was established in 1989. It aims to continue the traditions and educational thought of several generations of Polish Scouts. The roots of the ZHR, or the Scouting Association, date back to 1980, when the Circle of Scouting Instructors was created. Andrzej Małkowski gathered together independent environmental scouts and instructors. The Scouting Association of the Republic is a community of friends, children, youth, and adults who, based on Christian values, through Scout leaders, work on themselves to help others. They seek adventure and pursue other elements of the Scouting life that educate a person to find a life full of happiness, to be responsible for oneself and for one's fellow citizens, and to take on the challenges of the modern world.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. In today's episode, we will be talking to another scout, Mr. Wiesław Turzański. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
Let's start with a question about your role in scouting.
I have been a scout instructor for the last 30 years. I joined the scouting movement in the 1980s. At that point, it was an informal structure which wanted to bring back true scouting in Poland. That was between 1980 and 1981, times of the Andrzej Małkowski Scout Instructors Council. This was sort of the solidarity movement for us, scouts, a way to see how scouts could be run if they were not broken down during communism. When martial law was introduced on December 13, 1981, it stopped this period of optimistic reconstruction of the association, at least on the side of law. And since an organization could not have been set up legally and openly, there were talks of informal activity. That included many interesting programs, such as the White Services, who accompanied the Pope John Paul II during visits to his Polish homeland. However, the years 1988 to 1989, right before the political breakthrough in Poland, was a time when the opposition community decided to set up a new organization that would work under the traditional rules of the Scout movement, namely to serve God, Poland and our homeland. This was the idea behind the formation of Scouting Association of the Republic, which was established on February 12 during its first ever meeting in Warsaw. I also participated in this meeting, so I am in fact a founding member.
Ja w tym spotkaniu również uczestniczyłem, więc jestem członkiem założycielem.
And scouting in Poland was established about 30 years ago, is that correct? And I know that it is based on pre-war values. Did it function before the war as well?
Myślę, że to jest troszkę bardziej złożone, ponieważ pierwsze drużyny na ziemiach polskich powstały przez 110 lat.
I think that this is a more complex matter because the first scout units in the areas of Poland were set up over 110 years ago, in the year 1909, maybe 1910. During the times of regaining independence, Andrzej Małkowski famously said, "Polish scouts are scouting and independence." Almost 90% of the members of the then scouting movement, which was just budding at the time, joined the fight for independence, that is, until 1921. Before that year, we had the Wielkopolskie and Śląskie uprisings, as well as the Polish-Bolshevik War, with the Battle of Warsaw being a very important episode in that part of history. I believe that in all the battles, all the spots you could think of related to Polish struggle for independence, you could find young Poles who wanted to make their mark through scouting. The interwar period was a time of great development of the organization, which had 230,000 members in its ranks right before the outbreak of World War II. This was the Polish Scouting Association, the original one, which was established in 1918 by gathering youth from various organizations coming from different partitions. The Polish Scouting Association experienced a period of turbulent growth in the 1930s under the guidance of Michał Grażyński, the mayor of Śląskie province. Here we can note a legendary meeting, a summit organized for the 25th anniversary of scouting in Poland, taking place in Spała, 1935, right next to the residency of then-President Mościcki. Over 25,000 people, Polish girls and boys, flocked to this event, but they were not the only ones to attend. There were also friends of Scouts, as well as Scouts who did their service outside of Poland, in Polish diasporas all over the world.
Działających poza Polską w środowiskach polonijnych.
During Holy Mass on World Youth Day in Krakow, Pope Francis announced that Panama would be the next host for a world meeting of Scouts. A meeting in the Southern Hemisphere was a distant target for the ZHR Scouts from Poland. The president of Panama, appreciating the involvement of ZHR in medical security, invited their representatives to meet. Participation in World Youth Day on the border between the Americas, that is Panama, between North and South America, and being in Central America is a perfect place for this gathering. The entire Polish Scouting organization, in particular the Scout Volunteer Ambulance Service, are preparing themselves for this event.
And what was the role of Scouts during the Second World War?
Druga wojna światowa jak gdyby zamyka pewien okres żywiołowego rozwoju.
World War II closes a certain chapter of tumultuous growth for the association, which gave a certain foundation to tackle the enormous tragedy that World War II undoubtedly was. On one hand, the Scouts were preparing for service. That is one of the main roles of the Scouts: service to God, Poland and homeland. Those words and maxims translated into real action. That was the essence of Scouting, to create a situation in which they could be educated and taught certain values through active involvement. And so the moment of truth came. The older boys, who either were of age or were just coming of age, they were called up into the army and later joined the guerrilla movement. On the other hand, there were younger boys and girls for whom new, specific programs were developed. Scout girls took care of paramedics, while the younger boys had the legendary Grey Ranks. The Grey Ranks were built on an ingenious idea of dividing their members into three groups. One could say they were three levels of nurturing the youth. First, there were the Zawiszacy, the youngest group. After them, there were combat schools, those who were learning how to develop their minds and knowledge. As we know, Polish education system was difficult to maintain during the time of war. Combat schools also dabbled with minor sabotage. These stories were written down in the book by Aleksander Kamiński in Kamienie na Szaniec. That sabotage was not just limited to painting patriotic and anti-Nazi symbols on the walls, but also scaring photographers who would display photographs of the Germans and many, many others. Finally, the oldest group, the assault groups. I even have a pin worn by one of my leaders while he was in an assault group of the Zośka battalion. He gave me this pin as a keepsake. Assault groups were the oldest boys. In general, they formed two major battalions, Zośka and Parasol. Even though they mostly made their name during the Warsaw Uprising, the Parasol battalion led diversion maneuvers like the attacks on Koper or Kucia, who were the leaders of SS and the police in the districts of Warsaw and Krakow. One must not forget Operation Arsenal, which was the first major operation of the Grey Ranks. Each year we are commemorating the anniversary of this operation on March 26th. It was the first time when the prisoners were liberated in Warsaw during the war. The aim of the attack was to rescue one of the scouts by his friends from Zośka battalion. This was the element of armed battle, though not all their missions revolved around guns. There is a common misconception that the boys from Grey Ranks would run around with rifles and Molotov cocktails. There were instances during the Warsaw Uprising when each subunit took to battle. It is important to mention the youngest, Zawiszacy, who became famous thanks to their brilliant idea and execution of delivering posts. They would carry the correspondence among the fighting soldiers as well as families divided by barricades. Zawiszacy would often squeeze through tunnels in order to get to certain difficult-to-reach areas. They carried military orders, reports and letters to families which described what had happened since the mail last got through.
Pocztę do najbliższych, informując o tym, co przez te 63 dni akurat się dzieje.